Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my Endless Diary Tales channel? Thank you so much. My boyfriend lost a game of truth or dare. The dare was to kiss someone of the opposite sex. Just as he and I were about to kiss, Emma suddenly pushed me aside and kissed him instead. You're being ridiculous. Today is your sister-in-law's birthday, Daniel said as he playfully pinched her cheek with a doting smile. Everyone turned to look at me, who had been shoved onto the sofa. The entire room fell silent. No one dared to make a sound. Emma laughed lightly. Oh, come on, don't be mad, Olivia. Daniel never even sees me as a woman. Daniel also chimed in, trying to reassure me. It's just a game. Don't take it so seriously. Everyone expected me to explode, to cause a scene, but instead, I calmly removed my engagement ring and gently slipped it onto Emma's finger. Let me know when you set the wedding date. The room was deathly silent. Even Emma was stunned. Lauren scoffed. It's just a game. Do you really have to take it this far? Daniel's voice turned cold. She knows. I smiled faintly. I'm just making it more fun for you all, aren't I? Daniel's expression darkened visibly. Emma tugged at his sleeve, pouting. All right, Daniel, it's my fault. I didn't think Olivia would be so sensitive. She then removed the ring and tossed it back at me. Here, don't be mad. Take your ring back. I didn't mean anything by it. The ring hit my face with a crisp sound before falling to the floor. Everyone stared at me in shock, but I simply picked it up. If you don't want it, then it's useless. And with that, I tossed it into the trash. Olivia, are you crazy? That's your engagement ring with Daniel. Quick, find it. Where did it go? The group scrambled to search through the trash can, but it was already overflowing with watermelon rind, banana peels, and even someone's vomit. It was impossible to find a small ring in that mess. Even Emma started to panic, clutching Daniel's hand with red-rimmed eyes. Daniel, how did things turn out like this? Why is Olivia reacting so strongly? Did I really go too far? But we've never had boundaries since we were kids. The next second, Daniel pulled her behind him, shielding her. Stop looking. Everyone froze, their hands still hovering over the trash can as they turned to look at him. His gaze was cold enough to pierce through me. If you can't handle the game, don't play it. Now, because of you, no one is happy. Are you satisfied? A tightness formed in my chest. Emma was the one who kissed my boyfriend. I tolerated them, and yet somehow I became the one ruining the mood. If this were before, I would have cried and screamed, accusing Emma of crossing the line. But now, I no longer had the energy for that. Instead, I turned around, picked up my bag, and said, Well, I'm leaving. Have fun. As I shut the door behind me, the noise from the private room was muffled. Someone hesitantly spoke up. Today is Olivia's birthday. Isn't it a bit harsh to let her leave like that? Daniel's voice was filled with impatience. Don't bother with her. She's always been too sensitive about time. She learned to grow up. He then continued casually. Emma was recently invited to be a lecturer. Since the cake is already here, why don't we let Emma blow out the candles instead? The atmosphere quickly warmed up again. The birthday wishes that were meant for me turned into congratulations for Emma's bright future. My face felt cold. I wiped it with my hand and realized at some point I had started crying, but I wasn't sad. I didn't feel anything at all. Growing up in a faculty housing complex, I had always admired Daniel, the academic prodigy, but I was never as outgoing as the others. I never had the right words to say, so I could never quite fit into their world. Every time I would sit by the window and watch Daniel and Emma chase each other around laughing, I worked hard, studied relentlessly, and whenever I saw our names next to each other on the ranking list, I would be overjoyed. But I was never as bright and lively as Emma. There was always a polite, distant gap between us. Then we got into the same university. Emma ended up at an average school and got herself a boyfriend, while I finally mustered up the courage to confess my feelings to Daniel. Fortune favored me, he said yes. From that moment on, every decision I made revolved around him. When he decided to stay at the university to teach, I gave up my chance to study abroad. My advisor tried countless times to persuade me, listing examples of my senior classmates who returned home earning six-figure salaries, some becoming Chongjiang scholars and professors before even hitting 30. But I just blushed and told him, as long as I can have a stable life with Daniel, that's enough for me. I gave my everything and all I ever wanted was him, but he never once considered me. I let out a long breath into the cold night air and made a call to my former PhD advisor. Professor, the project you mentioned before, do you still need people? There was a brief pause before he responded, as if surprised. Sweetheart, have you finally thought it through? Of course we need you. You're the perfect fit for this project. Even your junior keeps begging me to let her in, but I wouldn't agree to it. When can you come? I'll pick you up. I chuckled. In about half a month. I need to take care of some things here first. Although I wasn't leaving immediately, I spent the next few days carefully reviewing the project details. The time difference between Ireland and here was significant. By the time I finished my call, the sky over there had already darkened, while here it was nearly dawn. Busy with exhaustion, I ran a bath, letting the warm water soak into my bones. My entire body relaxed as fatigue slowly overtook me. The soft hum of music in the background lulled me into a deep sleep. The next time I opened my eyes, I was startled awake by the sound of a door opening. Olivia and Daniel's voices echoed through the apartment, moving from room to room, growing increasingly impatient. Then, as the bathroom door swung open, his tone turned sharp. His gaze locked onto me, carrying a hint of reproach. I stared at him, confused. What was he angry about this time? Was he upset that I hadn't waited for him in the living room like before? Ready to argue with him about Emma? You're back, I said flatly. Sorry, I fell asleep and didn't hear you. Supporting myself against the bathtub, I turned my head slightly. Could you leave? I'd like some privacy. My voice was polite, distant. He frowned, rubbing the bridge of his nose, looking exhausted. I was late because Emma drank too much. Her ex-boyfriend kept harassing her. I couldn't just leave her alone. You understand, don't you? Safety comes first. He paused, waiting for my response. I let out a soft chuckle. You think I'm mad? Then I laughed. Why would I be? You and Emma grew up together. It's only natural for you to walk her home. Besides, she lives alone. It's the gentlemanly thing to do. For a moment, Daniel looked at me as if he couldn't believe what he was hearing. I waited for him to say something, but when he didn't, I simply got up and reached for a towel. We had lived together for so long, there wasn't anything he hadn't seen before. But for the first time, I felt self-conscious wrapping the towel around myself. I turned to leave, but he suddenly grabbed my wrist. Olivia, can you just say what's on your mind? I paused. What is there to say? His grip tightened slightly. You used to have so much to say. I thought for a moment. He was right. Every time we argued about Emma in the past, I was the one who wouldn't stop talking, who wouldn't let it go. But I had come to realize that when love fills your heart, it drives you crazy. It makes you lose control. Now there was nothing left. I felt nothing, so naturally there was nothing to say. I gently pushed his hand away. It's late, past 2 in the morning. I have experiments to run tomorrow. His hand froze. Mare. I yawned. Don't stay up too late then. Without another word, I climbed into bed and shut my eyes. For a while there was no sound from outside. Then suddenly bang. The loud slam of the door jolted me from the brink of sleep. Daniel had stormed out. I knew why he was angry. He had finally given me an opening, a chance to reconcile, and I had refused to take it. But I had no regrets. That night I slept soundly. The next morning, I was yawning as I placed an order for breakfast delivery. When I opened the door, I saw a small birthday cake sitting on the table. Daniel sat behind it. Happy belated birthday, Olivia. I froze. The payment page for my food order was still open on my phone. I know you weren't happy about what happened yesterday, he continued. That ring, we really couldn't find it. His long, slender fingers slid his phone across the table toward me. Honestly, that style never suited you anyway. Pick a new one. Then, as if to smooth things over, he added, Emma is just childish. Don't take her too seriously. To us, a kiss might mean something, but she's always been carefree. I suddenly interrupted. You even ordered a cake just for me. Thank you. The unexpected gratitude caught him off guard. He stared at me, stunned. Olivia. I bent down slightly, tightly reading the message written on the cake, wishing my dear one to always be 18. What a sweet message. I murmured. Thanks, I really like it. He frowned. Olivia, I was already reaching for the plates and utensils. His eyes lowered slightly. There was a cheerful note in my voice. This bakery makes the best cream cakes. I can never get a reservation. You really put in the effort. He hummed in response as if lost in thought. Daniel, you should have the biggest slice. Don't waste it, I said, placing the largest piece in front of him. Then I picked up a smaller one and took a bite. Is this a new flavor? It's pretty good. He furrowed his brows. Olivia, can you at least look at what I'm showing you? I glanced down. His phone screen displayed a high-end engagement ring website, the kind where you could only order one ring in a lifetime. My hand trembled slightly. Had he shown me this even a day earlier, I would have been ecstatic, but now I simply took another bite of cake. No need. Those things are just overpriced gimmicks. Too much trouble. Daniel's gaze darkened with disbelief. Olivia. I smiled. Really, I don't care about those things anymore. Don't waste your money. The cake was more than enough. With that, I placed my empty plate on the table. I have a meeting today. I need to head out early. Make sure to put the dishes in the dishwasher. Then I turned and went into the bedroom to change. Bam! The sound of a chair being pushed back hard made me turn around. Daniel picked up his phone, his expression unreadable. Whatever, I'll just give it to Emma. She likes this kind of thing. Then he slammed the door, and the slice of cake in front of him remained untouched. For the next few days, I didn't see him at school. A few days later, I overheard some people talking. This is beautiful. The craftsmanship is the most exquisite I've ever seen. Who got this for you? Emma, if you find a man willing to buy you a ring like this, someone teased, you should just marry him. When I arrived at the office, a group of people had gathered around Emma, chatting excitedly. I glanced over and immediately noticed the ring on her pale, slender finger. It was the classic design from a brand known for its exclusivity. Someone once said this particular style symbolized eternal love, unwavering until death. Oh, it's just a gift from a friend, nothing serious, Emma said with a bright smile, though her gaze flickered toward Daniel, who was sitting nearby. The moment she saw me, she quickly covered her mouth in feigned surprise. Oh no, Professor Dew. When did you get here? She waved her hand, flashing the ring. This isn't from Daniel. Don't get the wrong idea. From the moment I stepped inside, Daniel had already glanced at me once, but then, as if deliberately ignoring me, he raised his hand, ring and all, and continued chatting and laughing with everyone. The incident from my birthday was still fresh in everyone's minds. The room fell silent as all eyes turned toward me. Even Daniel subtly leaned in closer. I walked up to Emma gently, lifting her hand to examine the ring. It's beautiful. Your boyfriend has great taste. Emma froze for a moment. Daniel, who had been drinking water, suddenly paused. The room was silent for a beat before someone broke into laughter. Well, if even Professor Dew approves, then Emma, your boyfriend must have put a lot of thought into it. Someone tugged at their friend's sleeve, trying to quiet them, but the person whispered back. What's there to be afraid of? If the ring was from Daniel, Olivia would have flipped out by now. Clearly, she's already moved on. As if waking from a daze, the group quickly jumped in. Emma, when did you start dating? You've kept it a secret all this time. The ring is already on your finger. When's the wedding? Let me take another look. This design is stunning. Amidst the flood of compliments, Emma smirked slightly and looked at me. Honestly, I don't even know how he picked this out. I just mentioned that I liked it and he bought it for me. Who knew he had such good taste? Before she could finish, I abruptly reached out and pulled the ring off her finger. Emma's words faltered. She turned to Daniel instinctively. Daniel. Daniel stood up, holding a stack of lecture notes for his undergraduate class. His voice was cool. Is this really something worth flaunting around the office? Emma covered her mouth again, her eyes instantly welling up. Daniel. But he ignored her completely. Instead, he shot me an unreadable look before turning away. Professor Dew's taste could use some improvement. Then, without another word, he strode out of the room. I had no idea what he was so upset about. I had complimented the ring. Why was he acting like I had just insulted him? After finishing my lecture, I received a message from Daniel. Dinner tonight? It seemed like he had realized something. That was fine. I had things to say to him too. Sure, I'll come after I finish my experiment. I sped up my work, trying to make sure I finished in time for our 7 p.m. meeting. But when I was finally ready to leave, I realized something was wrong. The lab door wouldn't open. Normally, the lab doors weren't locked until after 11 p.m., but it was barely 7. Why was it already locked? Worse, my phone was in my locker outside the lab. I had no way to contact anyone. I considered climbing out the window, but the lab was on the 8th floor. Just as panic started to creep in, I heard footsteps outside. I banged on the door with all my strength, desperate to get someone's attention. The lab had excellent soundproofing, and it took everything I had to finally make enough noise for someone to hear me. But when I saw who it was, my heart sank. It was my junior colleague, the one who had been dying to take my spot in the Ireland project but had been rejected in favor of me. She had been holding a grudge ever since I mouthed the words, "Help me," through the glass. She simply stared at me for a moment, then shook her head and walked away. A chill spread through my body. Did Daniel know I was here? I had to get out fast. I tried to find something to pry the door open, but the equipment in the lab was worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. I couldn't bring myself to risk damaging any of it. In the end, I could only sit against the door in despair. The click of the lock turning startled me, and I scrambled to my feet. Standing in the doorway was my junior colleague, Sophie Green. She leaned against the door frame, twirling a key between her fingers. "Professor Lin, who's in charge of the keys, left early today," she said casually. "I had to file a request and fill out some paperwork before they let me borrow one. Took a bit of time. Hope you weren't too scared." I stared at her in shock. Professor Lin? That meant Emma. Sophie let out a scoff. Who else? I hesitated for a moment before saying, "Thank you." She waved a hand dismissively. "If this is about you apologizing for getting picked over me for the Ireland project, don't bother." Then she turned and walked away, her voice drifting behind her. "One day I'll surpass you." By the time I got out, it was already 7:30 p.m. I rushed to the restaurant as fast as I could. In my hurry, I tripped on the stairs and scraped my knee badly. A waiter helped me to my seat, but when I arrived at the reserved table, I found a couple already sitting there. "Excuse me, ma'am. Are you sure you have the right table? This one has been reserved for quite a while now," the waiter politely reminded me. I froze. My phone buzzed with a notification. When I opened it, I saw a post from Emma. "Thanks to my dear brother for this grand birthday surprise. Not mad anymore." The attached picture showed a massive 5-tier cake with Emma standing front and center, surrounded by a dozen friends popping confetti. The person standing beside her had their face covered with a cat sticker, but I recognized the silhouette immediately. Daniel. I glanced at my calendar. Oh, today was Emma's birthday. "Would you like to make a reservation now?" the waiter asked. My knee throbbed with pain. I shook my head. "No thanks. Can you tell me where the nearest hospital is?" I never called Daniel. By the time I got my wound cleaned, treated, and bandaged, it was already late at night. When I finally returned home, it was past midnight. As I opened the door, I nearly jumped in fright. Someone was sitting silently in the dark living room. I quickly turned on the light, still shaken. "Daniel, why are you sitting here in the dark?" He looked up at me. His eyes were slightly red, the veins in them visible from exhaustion. "Olivia, it's almost 3 in the morning." I nodded. "Yeah, I worked late." He hesitated, then said in a careful tone, "I didn't make it to our dinner." "I know," I replied lightly. "It's fine." I set my bag down. "You scolded her, right? So, of course you had to make it up to her. Her birthday was the perfect opportunity." Suddenly, his hand caught my wrist. He was still seated, looking up at me. "The party is still going on. I left early." I blinked in confusion. "Why?" His grip tightened slightly. "I was waiting for you to call me." I froze for a moment. Then I pulled my hand away. He didn't let go easily. I had to forcefully break free. "It's fine," I said. "I trust you too." I changed my shoes and took off my coat, feeling his gaze on me the whole time. His Adam's apple bobbed as he swallowed. "You're not mad." My voice was soft but firm. "No, I'm not, Olivia." I wasn't sure if I imagined it, but his voice seemed to tremble slightly. I cut him off. "Daniel, let's talk tomorrow, okay?" I gave him a small smile. exhaustion creeping into my expression. I'm really tired. We can talk as much as you want tomorrow. With that, I turned and headed into the bedroom. I didn't hear him slam the door this time, but he never came inside either. The next morning when I woke up, he was already gone. There was no sign of him at the office either. Apparently, he had gone straight to the lab for his experiments. That afternoon, I picked up my phone and started typing a message. Emma isn't bothering you today, right? Let's have dinner tonight. I have something to talk to you about. Before I could hit send, the office door burst open. Olivia, where did you hide my pen? I was yanked by my collar so forcefully that I nearly fell off my chair. Colleagues rushed over in alarm. Professor, calm down. But Emma's eyes were already red with frustration. I didn't mean to do that, but that pen was my grandfather's. You have to give it back. It's really important to me. Emma pleaded, her voice trembling. Professor, if you took it just to look at, that's fine, but can you at least tell me where it is? It's my grandfather's pen. I froze. Emma's grandfather had been a renowned physicist, someone who had made significant contributions to the country before he passed. The only thing he left her was a fountain pen, hoping she would follow in his footsteps. I had always respected the old professor. How could I possibly steal something that belonged to him? I left it in the lab yesterday and forgot to take it with me, she continued. At that time, you were the only one there, Professor. Then with a sudden thud, Emma dropped to her knees in front of me, sobbing uncontrollably. I swear I won't talk to Daniel ever again. Just please give me back my grandfather's pen. All eyes in the office were now on me. Everyone knew how many times I had argued with Daniel because of Emma. A hesitant voice broke the silence. Professor, say something. I looked up. Daniel was standing in the doorway. Olivia, just give it back, he said. If you like it, I'll buy you a new one. He held out his phone to me. You know the password, pick whatever you want. It doesn't have to be a pen. I stared at him for a moment before letting out a quiet laugh. What do you mean by this? His gaze shifted away. His Adam's apple bobbed slightly as he swallowed. That pen is really important to her. I'm not blaming you. I know you've been feeling wrong lately. It's understandable if you made a mistake. I smiled, but it was filled with helplessness. Do you really not know what kind of person I am? He didn't answer. Emma was still sobbing. She glances at me between her tears. Why are you crying? A sharp voice cut through the tension. You locked her in the lab, and now you're blaming her for taking your pen? Couldn't you have put it in your own locker instead of leaving it in the lab? Can't even keep track of your own things, huh? The unexpected reprimand stopped Emma's tears immediately. I turned around. Sophie Green was standing in the doorway holding an iced coffee. The office fell into stunned silence. Professor Green, what do you mean by that? Someone asked cautiously. She smirked and tossed a USB drive onto the table. Security footage recovery. Why don't you all take a look at how Professor Lin waited until Professor Du entered the lab before locking the door? Emma snatched up the USB drive and gripped it tightly. Sophie, this isn't necessary. Sophie gave a mocking smile. Scared. In the next second, she snatched the USB drive back and plugged it into the computer. But the screen only displayed lab data and lecture notes. There was no video at all. Emma's eyes widened in shock. You tricked me. Sophie scoffed. If you hadn't done anything, what were you so afraid of? Emma turned desperately to Daniel. Daniel. But for the first time, instead of defending her, Daniel frowned. Emma's face turned pale. She covered her mouth, pushed past him, and ran out. Only then did I finally meet Daniel's gaze. Olivia. I smiled gently. You don't have to explain, I understand. You and Emma grew up together. It's hard to believe someone you trust could frame me. I don't blame you. He was stunned. Dinner tonight? I asked softly. Professor Chun, do you already have plans with Professor Lee? His reply was immediate. No. I raised an eyebrow, slightly surprised. Then I smiled. All right, I'll be home by 7. Daniel's gaze locked onto mine. His expression serious. I don't mind. Good, I said casually. I'll buy the groceries. He didn't object. That evening, the moment I opened the door, a hand grabbed my arm. Oh my Olivia, you've grown so much. So beautiful now. An older woman gushed. Dear, come here, come here. I stood frozen in place, staring in shock as Daniel's parents appeared in front of me. I turned to Daniel in confusion, silently questioning him. He walked over and gently pulled me into his arms. "It's time to tell them." Then, as if dropping a bombshell, he added, "They should know about our engagement sooner or later." The moment those words left his lips, his parents' faces lit up with excitement. "When's the wedding?" his mother asked eagerly. "Olivia, do you want a big celebration or a cozy family gathering? If you'd like, we can even hold 2 ceremonies. It's not a problem at all." The enthusiasm from Daniel's parents was overwhelming, completely drowning out whatever I had originally planned to say. I turned to look at him. He was smiling gently as he pulled out a small red velvet ring box. Inside was a new engagement ring from a different brand, but still the exact style I had always liked. He had custom ordered another one for me. Instinctively, I moved my hands behind and my back. His parents hesitated, glancing between the two of us. Their joy, which had been overflowing just moments ago, seemed to waver slightly. "Wait, you two didn't talk about this beforehand?" The happiness in their eyes faltered as they took in the moment. Their expressions held a trace of sadness. I had no feelings left for Daniel, but our families had been close for decades. Our parents had lived in the same community for years, and Daniel's parents had always treated me like their own daughter. After we started dating, they had spoiled me endlessly, showering me with gifts. The first suitcase I ever owned, still tucked away in my closet, had been a gift from them. I quickly forced a smile. "No, it's not that. I just haven't washed my hands yet. I just finished an experiment." "Oh, that's nothing to worry about," his mother beamed, immediately grabbing my hand. Daniel's smile deepened as he gently took my hand from his mother's grasp and slid the ring onto my finger. 2 large red envelopes were pressed into my palm. I smiled. "Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Chun." His parents exchanged a look before shaking their heads. "Still calling us that? Isn't it time to change how you address us?" A hint of shyness crept onto my face. I lowered my gaze slightly. "Thank you, Mom. Dad." The moment those words left my lips, Daniel seemed to let out a quiet sigh of relief. His father, on the other hand, was ecstatic. "I need to call the Luce right away. I bet they'll be worried their precious daughter is getting stolen by my son." "Ugh, stop being so dramatic," his mother scolded playfully, but her eyes were full of joy. The next day, Daniel and I accompanied his parents to the airport. Once their plane took off, I finally spoke. "Daniel, I'm leaving too." He nodded. "Back to school?" "I'll drive you." I took a step back, avoiding his hand. "No, I'm leaving for Ireland." His hand froze. "Matter. There's a project there that needs me." For a moment he didn't react. "When did you decide this? Why didn't I know about it?" "On my birthday." The realization seemed to hit him like a truck. His fists clenched tightly, his voice shaking slightly. "Was it after you left the party?" I nodded softly. His knuckles trembled slightly before he took a deep breath, suppressing whatever emotions were storming inside him. "How long will you be gone?" 2 or 3 years. He lowered his head, murmuring, 2 or 3 years. That's not too long. I can wait for you. If you're interested in Ireland, I could even. Daniel, I cut him off. My point is, let's break up. A gust of wind swept through, blowing my hair slightly. It also blurred the expression in his eyes. Though we stood less than a meter apart, I could hear the shaky rhythm of his breathing. But we're already engaged. Our parents. I know. I smiled softly as I reached into my bag, pulling out a key. Taking his hand, I placed it in his palm. This is the house key. When you go back, check under the shoe cabinet. I put all the red envelopes your parents gave me there. As for the engagement ring, I didn't accept it, not because I resent you, but because the part of our relationship that made us a couple is already over. The things I left at home, take whatever you want. If you don't want them, throw them away. It's up to you. I won't be coming back. I stepped back. Goodbye, Daniel. I hope you become a professor soon. Then I patted the back of his hand and turned away. I didn't go home for the last 3 days before my departure. I stayed in a hotel. I had nearly finished all my work at the university, tying up loose ends on my final trip to submit my paperwork. I overheard something unexpected. Daniel had also applied for the Ireland research program. Logically speaking, with the resources he was already well on his way to becoming a professor. He didn't need to go abroad to boost his credentials, and in a few years when he returned, there might not even be a vacant position waiting for him. What's the point of this? A stack of documents was handed over my shoulder to the administrator in charge. I turned and saw Sophie Green giving me a polite smile. Looking forward to working with you in the future. The administrator, a young woman, immediately lit up at the sight of her. Professor Green, are you going abroad with Professor Chen? That's so lucky. Sorry, I interrupted before Sophie could respond, but I don't think I'll be teaching with Professor Chen. The administrator's admiration froze in place. Daniel, standing beside us, remained composed. We're headed in different directions, I continued evenly. In Ireland, we'll each focus on our own research fields. That's all. The administrator hesitated. Professor, do you and Professor Chen? I smiled. We broke up. Silence. I turned to Daniel and said, Still, I wish you success in Ireland, Professor Chen. Then I turned to leave, but before I could take another step, his hand clamped around my wrist. Even though he was trying to suppress it, I could hear the slight tremor in his voice. You really don't care at all anymore, do you? I gently pried his fingers off. Enough, Daniel. We're at school. Suddenly his voice rose. Where's that energy you used to have when you were always controlling me? Olivia, I froze. In the past, I had been obsessed with keeping tabs on him. If he came home an hour late, I would interrogate him about his whereabouts. He had snapped at me more than once. I'm your boyfriend, not your property. Why do you have to monitor everything I do? You think Emma and I are too close? We grew up together. If I really wanted to be with her, would you even be relevant? I sighed, turning to face him directly. Didn't you hate it when I meddled in your life? Now that I don't, what else do you want? For a second, his eyes shimmered like he was on the verge of tears. Just then a figure burst into the room. Daniel, you can't go to Ireland. Emma rushed in, her eyes red as she clung to his arm. You can't go. What about me? You promised you'd never leave me alone. The administrator was stunned. Daniel had always cared about his public image, yet now he stood in the middle of an open office, his eyes red. Ed openly stared at me like nothing else around him mattered. Olivia, he said, his voice hoarse, do you want me to go or not? I almost laughed. This was the same man who had always said, I make my own decisions, stop trying to control me, and now he wanted me to decide for him. I chuckled softly. That's for Professor Chen to decide. If you want to go, go. If you don't, then don't. Whatever path you choose, just make sure you don't regret it. With that, I turned to leave. I had only taken a few steps when he suddenly shouted, Olivia, do. I quickened my pace, walking away without looking back. Behind me, I heard his irritated voice. Let go. Can you stop being so annoying? Emma's sobs followed me down the hall. Until the day I left the country, Daniel never contacted me again. But for someone who never updated his social media, he suddenly started posting daily. A morning post, a graduation photo of us with the caption, I miss the old days. An afternoon post, a close-up of my hand wearing the engagement ring captioned, back then. And then finally a simple status update. I miss you, Olivia. Visible only to me. I scrolled past it and left a comment on my best friend's vacation photos instead. Gorgeous. The night before my departure, I received a call. Professor, you need to come to the hospital right away. Professor Chen had an accident in the lab. There was an explosion and he refuses treatment. He keeps saying he won't see anyone but you. I froze. Daniel had always been meticulous about safety. Once, a student had misplaced 2 bottles of chemicals, and he had called them out in the department's group chat. So how could he be the one to make a mistake now? Where was his mind wandering? By the time I arrived at the hospital, his eyes were unfocused, blindly reaching out into the air. Olivia, I need to see her. Don't touch me. Emma was crying beside his bed, her voice trembling. Daniel, Olivia's not here. Let me take care of you, okay? Your eyes have been severely damaged by the bright flash. You must receive treatment immediately. Stop searching for her, okay? I'm begging you. Emma's voice trembled as she pleaded. The moment she reached out to touch him, he shoved her hand away. Daniel gripped the edge of the hospital bed. Leave. Just go. His voice was hoarse but resolute. Olivia doesn't like seeing you around me. She'll misunderstand. You can't be here. Tears streamed down Emma's face as she covered her mouth, her entire body trembling. Daniel. I stood at the doorway and spoke his name in a calm, quiet voice. In that instant, all his movements froze. Olivia. He tried to get out of bed but nearly collapsed. Emma reached out to steady him, only for him to shove her aside. He stumbled forward, blindly reaching for me, his bandaged eyes struggling to find my presence. The moment his fingertips brushed against my face, damp patches formed on the gauze covering his eyes. It's you, his voice cracked. You came to see me. Before I could react, he pulled me into a tight embrace, his entire body trembling against mine. Don't leave, Olivia, please. Was wrong. Don't abandon me. I didn't move. The doctor said you can't cry. He immediately clenched his teeth, forcing himself to hold back. He was like a child, desperately trying to obey, yet still holding my hand tightly. I gently pried his fingers off. My flight takes off in an hour. His breathing faltered. You wanted to see me, so here I am. Now can you focus on getting better? The dampness on his bandages deepened. His entire body shook as if he was struggling to suppress something. Doctors and nurses rushed in. What's happening? He can't cry. Someone get him away from the patient. I was pushed aside, and the distance between us grew, but his voice only grew louder. No, don't let her go. You can't let her go. Olivia. I silently met Emma's gaze. She made a move to block me, but I simply stepped around her. As she reached out again, she was shoved aside. Her head hit the corner of a flower pot, and blood quickly pooled around her. I didn't look back. Step by step, I walked toward the exit. The sky was a brilliant shade of blue, and it was time for me to embark on my new journey.